Hello and welcome to our ongoing series of compliance webinars presented by Mango. So thank you all to those listening and viewing on the live event, and a big hello to the many thousands who will be viewing this recording at a later date. I know that time's important to you all, and I'm grateful for you all to view this. So my name's Craig Thornton. I'm one of the owners here at Mango. So some housekeeping rules for the webinar today. Firstly, please ask questions in the question box on your GoToWebinar application. During the presentation, myself and the panelists will hopefully answer those questions. And secondly, I'm recording this webinar, and soon after, you'll all get a link to the presentation. It will be a video of the presentation plus the slides that you're seeing now. You're most welcome to share this presentation with your colleagues. I know it gets shared amongst all sorts of groups. So on to today's topic. Our panelist today is once again Ian Hendra. Ian is backed by popular demand. Ian has a vast knowledge in quality, risk, food safety and compliance. He's been on all sides of the compliance game. So he's been the CEO of a certification body. He's been on a number of standards committees. He's been a quality manager. He's written many published articles and is now a consultant. In fact, I think Ian's New Zealand's leading quality consultant. He's always thought-provoking and challenges conventional thinking around compliance. So he has some really interesting lessons on root cause and non-conformances in this presentation. So he will challenge your thoughts, and you may not always agree, but he will certainly make you think. That's why I run these webinars. I want you all to think about what you do, why you do it, and how you do it. When I first started back in 1990 in quality at Kiwi Packaging, I worked for the first 12 months purely on non-conformances. I measured quality and non-conformances from the start of the factory to the end of the factory and beyond with customer complaints. My focus was on waste and what were the root causes of this waste. The work we did saved the company many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So doing great root cause analysis in your business really is like having a pot of gold that you can add straight to your profit line. So welcome Ian, and on to your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Craig, and welcome everybody who's listening and watching. It's a real privilege to do these, and I did thoroughly enjoy participating in these things. Okay, what can I say? I've entitled this thing, as you can see, "Digging Out the Roots," and there's a picture of a tree with a lot of roots. And I talk about solutions first syndrome. Now, why have I come up? That's a solutions first syndrome is something that came to me quite late in my career, and I'll talk about it a bit more. But I just want to fix the concept of solutions first syndrome in your heads, because it's not only is it as a human condition, but actually it's a curse, and it's what really impedes effective investigations and effective continual improvement. So just tuck that away in the back of your mind. So let's start with where we're going to start. Here we go. Let's go here. Here we go. So what are we going to unlock? Well, I'm talking about unlocking because my background, as many of you probably know, is heavily based on ISO 9001. And in ISO 9001, there is a sequence that we're going to talk about down here. It's called the NCCA-PA sequence. And it's locked up. It's been locked up for years. So I want to unlock it for you, because if there is one reason at all for doing ISO 9001 for your own sake, it's unlocking this whole section, this continual improvement sequence that's in it. Very few certifications over the years I've seen have done it well. I have to say this, that doesn't include the ones that I consult for, tee-hee. Okay, so I'm going to talk about solutions first syndrome. Then I'm going to talk about my two pet hates. I have two pet hates in all of this, and it's you know, they're genuine pet hates. I'm going to talk about my friend Dr. Deming, because really he is, you know, profound in in the roots of the genesis of all this. I want to talk about somebody called Professor James Reason, who you may know. If you don't, I'll advise you who he is, and a guy called Dean Gano. Is very important. So I'm then going to introduce you to 3 tools, and these are the takeaways that I'm offering for you today as your revised way of going about doing continual improvement. The first one I call the binary model. The second one is the whole NCCAPA sequence in ISO 9001, laid out in a very easy form for you to follow. And the third is a set of 10 questions that you can use to make sure that you implement all of this stuff. Then I've got some stories at the end that you can use to illustrate really what Professor James Reason talked about and Dean Gano. So let's move on. Yes, of course you do need something if all else fails, and I rely on this. This is what every good and quality engineer needs to know. This little flowchart, I commend it to you. It always works. It's always good for a laugh, and so it's really good to print it out and post it on the wall, just to convince people you really know what you're doing. So enjoy this, folks. This is the if all else fails, this is what you do. I hope you enjoy it. Right, first bit. Solutions first syndrome. You'll see in this little picture here, which I think is priceless, is that the solution is all lit up and bright, and the problem's being crossed out. Now, solutions first syndrome is the habit of coming up with the solution before you've worked out what the problem is, and it happens all the time. Not very long ago, I attended a Lean Six Sigma program that was run locally for a bunch of companies by the Wellington Council. And right at the start, the tutor said, "Why are you here? What problems are you going to solve with this Lean Six Sigma, this Lean program?" And everybody said, "Oh, well, you know, we're installing new purchasing software. We're installing a new this and new that. We're installing blah, 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 blah." And all you got from each of the 6 companies that were involved was, except for the one I was with, because they were my clients and I'd given them all the stuff, was solutions. They had decided to take some action and they thought Lean was going to help them do it. They hadn't in any one single case identified any problem that needed to be solved. And so what I want to say to you is this, and this is the first takeaway. When you see this, we are a solutions-based organisations, be very, very frightened. Because the question you always ask is, fine, I love solutions, but what problems are you trying to fix? And when you ask that question, you almost inevitably get a blank stare. Haven't got, what do you mean, what problem? We're solutions based, right? Okay. This is the other one that you that pops up. Oh, don't worry about that. I know how to fix that, Ian. That's not a problem. Yeah, right. But you say, well, what is the problem? And I say, oh, don't worry about it. I know how to fix it. Yeah, be very frightened when that happens. And this is the other one that you hear all the time. Been telling them about this for years. All they need to do is to do X, Y, Z. And you say, why? What problem does it fix? And you get the proverbial blank stare. So that's solutions first syndrome. It's an absolute curse. It is the absolute reason, the single, in my view, reason why nearly all IT projects are late and over budget, because nobody has sat down and worked out what problem there is to fix. For example, I am working with a client who does a lot of inspection work on fire alarms. He's been getting a bit, and he's recently gone to a software-based solution. And so we started to look, and we got very worried about the quality of the inspection work that was going on. So I did a big study on the reports out of the software machine, and we were getting stuff like technicians loading inspection results for 3 sites within the same minute. Now, what they were getting there was a solution to the problem that they thought they had, which was we need data in a software machine The problem they had was we need better control over our inspection work, and they weren't getting that. So it's just interesting. What you measure is what you get. Okay, my two pet hates. Here we go. Now, this is where I need you to take a deep breath and bear with me, because this first one is yes, you might find it a bit confronting. My first pet hate is the Ishikawa fishbone diagram. Ian, that's religious in our industry. Everybody uses the Ishikawa fishbone diagram. Well, do they? If you believe in solutions first syndrome, you'll see that the problem with this is that it's come up. It's first of all, it said, well, the problem is the same as the effect. And then it said, well, we've got 6 classifications here, and these will always describe the problem. Will they? What this actually says is, here's some solution areas, guys. Find some stuff to fit in the diagram, and that'll tell you the problem. My view of that is, I don't think it works. So I would like you to be as honest as you possibly can. And I think, Craig, you can take over here, but I want you to tell me if and when you've used a fishbone diagram, it's either number 5 nailed the problem for good, or it didn't really help. And please be as honest as you possibly can.
Okay.
Over to you, Craig.
So we're just going to run a poll. So this is where you can get onto your screen, and I've just launched the poll. So if you can answer the question there, and we'll get some voting going on for like 15 seconds. So we're not allowed to vote, of course, Ian.
No.
But
no.
so we're getting quite a few people on. So I'll give you another 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closed. Okay. So this is very interesting, Ian. 90% said it didn't really help. 10% said it nailed the problem for good. So maybe you're onto something here, Ian. It didn't. 90% of the people that voted
said it didn't really help.
Didn't help.
Okay,
that's interesting.
Well,
very good.
I would agree with the 90% because I've tried to use this thing for 30, 40 years, and I've never really done anything other than to fill in these funny little secondary and primary cause things without any real. It's just been confusing. Mm-hmm. So anyway, 10% of you, that's good. I'm glad you're satisfied with it, but I think yeah, that's why it's my pet hate, because it starts with solutions first. In other words, you've got to find a solution that matches these 6 headings. Yeah. Right. Next one. Are you all sitting down, sitting comfortably? Right, here we go. Next one. Whoa, 5 whys. Whoa. Now, Christopher Paris, who some of you may know, is one of the conveners of the ISO 9001 discussion group on LinkedIn, says 5 whys, why 5? And in fact, I see what you're driving at. Why isn't it 3? Why isn't it 2? Why isn't it 17? 5 seems to be some magic number. Now, let's ask the same. This is the same question, Craig. Out there, of any of you who've used this tool, has it nailed the problem for good, or didn't it really help?
Okay. So here we go. We'll launch this one again. So answer the question. So if you've used the 5 whys, did it work? Did it nail the problem for good, or did it not really help? So we'll give you another 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very good. Okay, so the poll says 68% said it didn't help, Ian. 66% said it didn't help. 34% of you said that it nailed the problem for good. So the majority said it didn't work. That's interesting.
That's 2 out. So all right, that's 2 out of 3.
There you go. There's your statistical survey done there.
Very good. About how many responses did you get, by the way?
So it says 60%, about 50 people have voted.
Okay, that's cool. All right.
50 on the live event.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Right. Now, the reason I believe it doesn't work very well is because
just pause there, Ian. Can I just?
Yes.
Matt, who I know very well, has come in with a very good answer. These are good tools to show clients that you've at least gone through a structured process.
Yes, couldn't agree more.
That's a very good answer. Yes, at least it's these tools are actually so well known that it's ideal for showing your customers that at least you're thinking about this stuff and can show them what you're doing about it.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, Matt, I hope at the end of this presentation you'll come away with something you can show your customers that might be even more impressive than 5 wires or fishbone. That's the idea. My fear about this Y5 thing is that it's linear. It assumes that the solution is a linear cause and effect, whatever they call it, is a linear analysis, and it isn't. And we'll show you why shortly. Right, here we go. Now let's talk about my friend Dr. Deming. He came up with Plan, Do, Check, Act, didn't he? So I chucked it there right in the middle of the picture. But what did he really say? He said, and this is crucial stuff, you can't solve a problem if you don't understand it. Now, my sons are tradesmen, one's a mechanic, one's an engineering tradesman. I've taught them right from they were very small that they couldn't ever, you can't, I'm a technician too, electrical technician. I firmly believe from a very young age that if you don't know how it works, you can't mend it. That's true of a car, it's true of a fridge, it's true of a piece of software. So that's where that, so I would fully endorse Deming's statement that you can't solve a problem if you don't understand it. Or put it in QA speak, process improvement is not possible if the causes of the variation are not fully understood. Next bit, tampering. Deming was effusive in his condemnation of tampering. And what he meant by tampering was fiddling about with the variables in a process in the absence of knowing what the causes were. He used these 2 experiments, the red bead. You've seen the red bead experiment, haven't you, Craig?
I have.
Yeah.
I
actually have one.
Yeah, people should go online and look at the red bead experiment. It's on YouTube. And I
actually have one. I do actually have one sitting on the shelf. It looks just like that. That's the red bead experiment. Essentially, it's a box of plastic beads with 20% red, and you sample how you pick them out. The red bead experiment is a really good thing that shows that process performance is a given. Not much you can do with it. The funnel experiment is this one over here, and that's where you drop a marble through a funnel and it drops onto it, pointing the funnel at a target, and you look at where the marble ends up. And then you make corrections to try and improve the performance. In other words, you tamper by moving the funnel. You tamper with the process, and the experiment clearly shows that tampering only makes the process performance worse. Now, okay, Deming said, by what method? Only the method counts. I haven't had the pleasure, or that wasn't around in the days when Deming was teaching, or wasn't aware of Deming at the time when Deming was teaching. And so I never attended his course, but I do have an excellent book that describes word for word his 4-day course. And it's clear in this book that one of the things he did not, several of the things he did not cover in his course was the Ishikawa diagram and the 5 whys. He just didn't talk about it. He only ever talked about Plan, Do, Check, Act. So by what method? Only the method counts is a seminal observation. By the way, I put this thing down here, this little quality game box. Craig said you can get this stuff online. This quality game box thing is produced by PQ Systems. It costs, I don't know, it might be 50, 60 bucks, something like that. And it's got simulations, computer-driven simulations of the Deming experiments, the dice experiment, a quincunx, which is fascinating, central limit theorem, and this shooting range thing. I highly commend it to you. I've had a copy on my computer for a very long time. Use it all the time to demonstrate to my clients. That's basically the screen that you get there, and they're the tools that you can pick up and use. It's fascinating. There's a very good simulation of the funnel experiment and the red bead. So I just put that there for your information. So when you get the slides, that link should work, I hope. Would that be right, Craig?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So when you get the slides, click on those links. Yeah, no, we've had a look online. They look very good.
Yeah. Now, Professor James T. Reason, who's he? I think it's wonderful that a bloke with the name of Reason should be into cause and effect analysis. I think it's really very appropriate for a start. Very famous man, very much renowned in high-risk industries like the aviation industry and medicine. Professor Reason is really responsible for the way that effective aviation accidents are investigated. He set the methodology. He wrote these two books, this one in 1990 and the later one in 1997. And in fact, he describes in some detail a number of major disasters like Chernobyl and a whole stack of others. And he comes to the conclusion that organizations are like, or the organizations have defenses against things going wrong. He says the defenses themselves are like slices of Swiss cheese. And there's two sorts of slices. There are slices where there are latent conditions. In other words, things that are bound to go wrong. And there's a series of defenses that are all about safety, the way people behave. And so the holes in, and these are the slices here, you see. So you've got this, say this is a latent condition slice. The latent condition is the hole. And here the unsafe acts are the hole. So this is the systems here, and this is the behaviors, systems, behaviors, and so it goes on. And his pitch is that, you know, if one day a series of holes lines up, you end up with a hazard causing an accident or loss. Now, if you study any of the accident reports, including those in this country, the
Pike River, you'll find that this is absolutely true. And if you look at any, and we'll talk about them later, but you'll see that this model is absolutely profound. Certainly when I worked for Airways New Zealand, we used this model all the time for all the safety investigations we did, even into very minor issues. The problem with it, and it is absolutely profound, you need to, so if you're looking for something new to show to your clients about how you deal with non-conformities and issues, this model is something you should need. If you bring this up, you'll get a lot of mileage. You'll say, oh, really? Swiss cheese model, that's good. So I commend these books to you. They're a bit dry, but they really do. They're really quite good. What's the problem with it? It does suffer from a problem, unfortunately. And the problem is that the users have lost sight of the very simple model, a bit like Ishikawa diagram, where the thing is actually complicated by having those 6 boxes that you have to deal with. So those who promulgated the Swiss cheese model have, and Reason does it himself in the second book. He gives a whole stack of classified organizational factors. And he says the idea is to classify the defenses into these organizational factors. It makes it incredibly complicated, right? Yet
the model is very simple, and this is a figure out of his book, and it's a very, very simple model. Look at that, bang, 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 loss. But it just gets complicated in the, in the overthinking of it. And so whilst it's profound and superb and very simple, it is complicated in its use, in my opinion. So it's all my opinion. You're quite happy to say, Ian, you're talking through a hole in the back of your head. That's fine, up to you. But my observation is that it's too complicated.
Just pause there. Jeremy says, we see this all the time when the critical control point fails and moves on to the next critical control point, which may fail too. So,
yep,
it's seen obviously. Just a couple there from Emma and Suzanne who've said just about the polls that we presented before. They felt they wanted an answer between 1 and 5. They felt that 1 and 5 was a bit harsh. So that was just a couple of comments.
All right. Okay. All right. Point taken. Yeah. All right. Sorry, ladies. But yeah. All right. I was hoping I should have said maybe pick 3 if you thought it was half useful. Yeah. But I'm sorry. I apologise. That's what was in the back of my mind. Maybe I should have verbalised it. I'm sorry. Apologise. Now let's talk about this guy Dean Gano. Dean Gano is a nuclear engineer, was, and he was heavily involved in the 3 Mile Island accident in 1979 when radioactive waste got released from the 3 Mile Island generating station in the United States. He came up with a model not unlike the Swiss cheese model, but apparently there is no relationship between Gano doesn't refer to the Swiss cheese model in his book, and Reason doesn't refer to Apollo root cause analysis in his book. So one has to assume there is, either they don't get on well at all, or they just don't know about each other. This book is well worth a read. A word of warning, it's all about trying to sell, pointing out how marvelous this Apollo root cause analysis software is. But the underlying messages are very, very smart, and so I commend it to you. You can buy it for about $8 off Amazon.com. I put this website here so you can go and have a look at it if you really want to buy the thing. Do have colleagues in the United States, in the United Kingdom, who are in the oil industry who do use this thing. So you can buy it. There's the website. He makes a wonderful observation. He says this: causes of ineffective problem solving are firstly an incomplete problem definition, secondly unknown causal relationships, and thirdly a focus on solutions. In other words, solutions first syndrome is a cause of ineffective problem solving. So here goes another takeaway. Go and have a look at Mr. Gano's book. It's not very big, which is the other. I like books that aren't very big. Very down-to-earth approach. He came up with 3 perspectives. Now these, ladies and gentlemen, are confronting in the extreme. So take a deep breath and bear with me. Dean says, firstly, there's no such thing as common sense. And his point is, we're all different. And what he means by that is that, for example, I am British, educated in the United Kingdom, left New Zealand when I left UK when I'm an immigrant here in New Zealand. I was over 40 when I immigrated, so all my beliefs and all that stuff is generated by United Kingdom family life and education and all that. I come to New Zealand and I meet, and my friends are New Zealanders who've been here much longer than me. They're a lot of Pacific people too. They have completely different backgrounds and experiences to me. Why on earth should we have a common view of anything when it comes to behaviours and beliefs? That's Mr. Gano's point. So if you find people saying, oh, it's only common sense that you do X and X, you say, common sense for whom? This is the one that absolutely makes people go sharp intake of breath. Dean says that cause and effect are the same. And what does he mean by that? Well, look at this little diagram, like this little table over here. Person slips over on wet floor. What's the cause? Leak from a water pipe. Okay. Leak from a water pipe. What's the cause? Maintenance not being done. What's the effect? Maintenance not being done because the budget ran out. Why did the budget run out? Effect, because sales targets were not met. Why were sales targets not met? Because there was a world recession. Why was there a world recession? Because of bad mortgagor decisions in the United States. Why were there bad mortgagor decisions? Because of poor governance controls, etc., etc., ad nauseam. Two things about this. Firstly, so it means that the guy, if you follow the likes of 5 Whys or Ishikawa, the person fell over on the floor because of poor governance controls over mortgagor decisions in the United States. That's probably true. But the other point is that the cause and the effect are the same. The same words are here as here. So notionally, they are the same. And what Dean says is that cause and effect are the same. There's just a continuum of causes. All right? If that's true, the fishbone diagram and 5 Whys can't work, can they? Because they rely on the separation, the notional separation of cause and effect. It doesn't exist. And that too is a point he makes at length in his book. So this is not only, I mean, this is me telling you what Gano says. This isn't anything that I've come up with on my own. So, okay, here you go. We're led to believe, as quality people, and in our way we talk to each other, that there is such a thing as a root cause. So what I'd like you to vote on is it true that the minimum number of root causes is 1?
Okay, so is it true the minimum number of root causes is 1? So that's the question. Probably a leading question there, Ian. I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close that. Okay, so 68% say no. So the minimum number is not 1. That's what they're saying. Ian, what do you say, sir?
Well, I'm going to tell you. I agree with Mr. Gano, by the way, and he says the minimum number is 2. That is to say, 1 gap in the system and 1 action that exploited it. Okay, and that too is another major takeaway. Right, these things, these four bullet points here on this slide are stuff I'm really desperate to share with people, because they change the way you think actually about all of this stuff. They really do. Yes, and it's simple to carry around in your head. You don't need a huge memory to work on this stuff. Okay, now this is, if you like, this is my bit, but Gano uses it in his software. But so what I'm saying here is, if you combine reasons for this model and Gano's
just pause there for a second, Ian. Just yes. To explain. So this is your first tool. This is your first takeaway you want people to use.
Yes.
Go. Keep going.
Yes. So feel absolutely free. So when you want to show your client, as Matty said earlier, that you can show feel free absolutely to show them this. This is how we do it, right? This is So whereas you might have shown them 5 Whys or Ishikawa, I'm recommending you show them something like this. So feel free to use it. And this basically says, if there's some kind of improvement, it's a euphemism, really, an improvement opportunity, it's a whatever it is, a non-conformity, call it what you like. And we agree that it arises from some sort of system weakness matching up with some sort of action that precipitated the error that's in here. Then you can say that, well, the systemic weakness itself is an improvement opportunity and the precipitating action is an improvement opportunity. So there's a systemic weakness and a precipitating action that led to this. And likewise here, led to this. And at the next level down, it's the same. So we end up with a binary relationship, not a linear one. Now remember, 5 Whys is a linear relationship. Well, this is saying it's not linear, it's binary. So if you believe in 5 Whys, then what you end up with is 64 causal factors, because 2 to the power 5, 64, I think. All right, so 5 Whys works as long as you do it like this. Oh, that's the point I'm trying to make here. Okay, what do I mean? I've used this for a number of years. It's difficult to give you real concrete examples without exposing some fairly confidential stuff about how people's systems work. But so what I've done is produced a little 4 example, and it's like this. Let's say you're late for a job interview, right? And you sit down, why was I late for the job interview? And you think, well, I underestimated the journey time. Yeah. And the reason I underestimated the journey time, the system gap, was that I had no system for preparing for stuff that was avoidable. All right. Mm-hmm. And then you say, well, why don't I have a system for not preparing? Because well, I don't bother, I just don't check for local media for potential delays. And the reason the behaviour that triggers that's unreasonable is because I don't believe they're useful. Yeah, I can believe that. I often listen to potential delays on the radio and then in the car radio and then go the way they say I shouldn't and find it's completely deserted. That's not unusual. And over here, I underestimated the journey because I had no system whereby I would collect data on journey time variation, right? And it never happened before, so that's perfectly all right. So that's the kind of thing which is very simple, and you can argue about the integrity of it if you like, but that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here with this binary model. There's much more to it than just underestimating a journey time. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Okay. How are we doing? There's the enemy. All right. Now, how do you make the binary model work? I want to show you. Oh, we're running out of time, Craig. It's 20 to 2, really.
20 to 2, yes.
Right. If you want to know about how you work this stuff out, then look at this. There's 2 types of opportunity: product oriented, service orientated. You can rely on number data, anecdotal data. These are the tools that we'll use to do these analyses, and you'll find all those tools here in the memory jogger. I've talked about the memory jogger before. I think it's another thing that nobody can be without if you're a quality guy, if you're a quality engineer. Right. This is the next tool. It's tool number 2. How does the non-conform? I'm assuming that a lot of people who are attending this seminar are ISO 9001 certified or literate or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Not all, but some. Yep.
No. Okay. So let's start with the ISO 9001 talks about risk-based thinking. It's not a new concept. I first knocked this up 20 years ago. So. Also, it's not true that preventive action has gone from ISO 9001 2015 because they've still got the words. Okay, let's start with a whoopsie or a wow. What's a whoop? any issue which is unplanned, and it can be good or bad. It can be a spontaneous order that you didn't expect or whatever. Client's gone away. First thing you're required to do is to identify it. So that's your first contingency arrangement. You had a plan for doing that. And then you use it or lose it. You either use it to do something else or chuck it away. And that's your second contingency. Next bit. Ask yourself a question. Do we have sufficient control of this issue? If the answer is yes, then your hazards are not exposing any risks, and you have implemented a plan, do, check, act system. Here's the plan, here's the do, here's the check, and here's the act. All right? Okay. Next bit. If the answer to this question is no, do an investigation. Use the binary model. And what will happen is that you ask the question, how did it happen? There are 4 questions going to come down here. How did it happen? Has it happened before? You'll get some answers, and then you work on your risk-based thinking, risk analysis for 5 areas of risk you want to worry about. That's all, don't worry about the rest. This is basic risk stuff in here. And what you'll come out with is some corrective actions that are all about preventing recurrence of the issue that exposed the risk, all about controlling the hazards. The comment about control points earlier is highly pertinent to this. Mm-hmm. Next question. How else could it happen? Well, it happened because the front wheel fell off. What happens if the other front wheel falls off? Okay. And again, we get the same process here. Assess the risks, take preventive action type 1, which is all about preventing how else? Occurrence, not recurrence. Occurrence. These haven't happened. Next question. Where else could it happen? Same sequence. Answer. Assess the risk, take preventive action type 2. Where else could that? Okay, it happened in the Auckland premises. Could it happen in the Wellington premises? It happened on the blue production line. Could it happen on the green production line, etc., etc. Contingencies worked okay. Exactly, that's preventive action type 3. I'm talking about these contingencies here, these plans that you got in place. What I say to people, that what I'm driving at there is that somebody once worked out that it was silly to pour water on electrical fires for the most obvious of reasons. You wonder how they found that out. That's the sort of question you'd ask along this row here. And of course, that's the end of it, isn't it? No, not quite. What comes next is monitoring action. So you monitor the effectiveness of these actions. And in due course, because it's green again, it's a check, there's a check here, and there's the final check. And you ask the same question, do we have sufficient control over this issue? If yes, all our hazards are not exposing any risks. We haven't got any hazards, so expose risks. If no, you go around the whole 9 yards again. Now, what's interesting about this model is that it's not new. It's the model that's been in ISO 9001 as long as I've known it, and that's since 1987. And it was in the previous British standard, which was British Standard 5750, and the NATO source documents before that. Hasn't changed a bit over the last 35, or whatever many years that is, 50 years. People just don't get it. Most systems stop around about here at this point. They don't get into this stuff. So that's tool number 2. Feel absolutely free to use this in your system as a mapping. Feel absolutely free. So again, if your clients say, how do you work out what went wrong with my batch that was late the other day, or my control limit that got exceeded, use this model. Show them this. This tool 3 is really a list of 10 questions that does what the previous diagram does. I used it as a non-conformity report in my certification body rather than the standard one that most other certification bodies used. Again, feel free if you want to lift that and plonk it into your quality system as how you get to the bottom of stuff, then feel absolutely free to use this. Okay, well that's really the end. They're the 3 tools I wanted to show you. There's some stories here.
Just pause there, Ian, just before you get into your stories. Yasser has come up with in 5 whys, many times the answer is a why is more than one. And even we do go into a binary model or with 5 whys. So he's saying they do binary if they use the 5
That's fine.
why. Yeah.
Okay. That's absolutely right. What I'm offering is a somewhat more systematic approach that says every time you ask a question in 5 whys, you're looking for at least 2 answers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference, I think.
So just on the 3 tools, so the first one, the binary method.
Yes.
The second tool using the non-conformance, corrective action, preventive action.
Yep.
So that's the first one.
Yep.
Are they separate or you combine them?
Well, in my head, they're all together. They all sort of back up one on the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I will get Post-it notes out. When I use this tool with my clients, I get Post-it notes out and do it on a wall or a window or a whiteboard or something, and lay it out with Post-it notes like that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How far down do you go? How far? It could go out. You've got 4 there. It could go next time. It goes down to 8.
The most I've ever been is 3 levels.
3, right?
And it's really, really quick too.
And you put fixes on those 8 things, do you, or on the?
Well, what happens is you start to find that you end up in what I call fairyland. You end up with stuff that you have absolutely no influence over, like bad governance decisions in United and American mortgages. You just can't deal with that. So you think, oh, this is fairyland, I'll stop here. Or you tend to find that what happens is things start to repeat themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you think, oh, that's a good one. Once they start to repeat on the left-hand and right-hand side of the diagram, you think, oh, that's a good one, got it. And that's what usually happens. Typically, I will go one more level.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
That's my experience of the last 20 years or so. This is a key here, by the way. The REM investigations are team sports, not for individuals. None of these tools work if properly if individuals do it. You have to do them on a team basis, and that all the memory jogger tools are team tools. And the reason is that the sum of a team's parts is much greater than its whole. So what you're relying on individuals' experience. If you rely on individual experience, you end up with bias and all that sort of nonsense and limited knowledge. To do this properly, you have to involve the people with relevant technical experience and the stakeholders in the solution.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. And this is the theme in the memory jogger. They are all team tools, and they all work fantastically well as problem, in these roles here, these tools here. Superb.
Those tools, I can see those tools are really helpful in determining, what are the variations to the process. What are the things that are causing the variations? Is that sort of summarizes
That's right.
it? You get to understand what the process is.
You get to understand what the process is, and you get to define the problem in real, tangible, measurable terms, and that's the key bit.
Right.
Right, and that's how you get round solutions first. You actually define the problem. Okay, so zap through this real quick.
Anyway, sorry, I'm using up your time. You've only got 10 minutes to run through some real life examples.
That's right. Okay. Well, this Bhopal thing was was where water caused a huge gas leak and it killed 2,000 people in a dreadful story. And Union Carbide were held responsible, and it was a genuine, fully paid up, no holds. As all of these are like that. They're all classic Swiss cheese model issues. All of them, every single one of them. Herald of Free Enterprise, that was the ship that went zooming out of Zeebrugge Harbour with the front door open. And the reason it did that was because the captains on the cross-channel ferries, Townsend, no, it wasn't Townsend, Torrison. Yeah, can't remember. They were under pressure to meet time targets, under personal pressure, threatened of dismissal if they didn't meet the schedule. And so they ventured out of Zeebrugge Harbour with the front door open into quite a heavy sea. Ship sank. Piper Alpha, that's the same. That's very dear to my heart. One of the biggest certifications I ever led was Piper Bravo, which was the replacement for Piper Alpha. There's some superb video about this produced by the BBC. Space Shuttle Columbia, that's all about the heat shield breaking up on re-entry and the spacecraft blowing it to bits. And Pike River Mine is all about, well, it is absolutely a classic case of management being more interested in making a profit than keeping people safe. I've put the links, so feel free absolutely to have a look at these things. But now you've got the Swiss cheese model in your mind and the binary model in your mind, you'll begin to see how it all fits together and how none of this is linear, and you know, it just doesn't work like that. Who said this? When anyone asks me how I can best describe my experience of nearly 40 years at sea, I say uneventful. And right at the end, I cannot imagine any condition which would cause a ship to founder. I cannot conceive any vital disaster happening to this vessel. Modern shipbuilding has gone beyond that. Wonderful. Well, the man who said that was Captain Smith, who was the captain of the Titanic. In 1907, he said that. But what's interesting about that is that, for a start, he was the man. He was the millionaire's master. He knew more about safety at sea than anybody else, as indeed did White Star Line. But history indicates that under his command, in 1899, 1911, and twice in 1911, he had accidents that meant that statement he made about ships being, you know, about it not possible, that's absolute nonsense. He just ignored his own experience. This is the night of the Titanic disaster. An icework warning had been issued. Smith was after the blue ribbon. The blue ribbon is the prize for crossing the Atlantic faster than anybody else. So he had no extra lookouts. He had posted no extra lookouts. But as it turned out, the lookouts who were there had lost their binoculars. Now, why is that significant? It's significant because had they owned up, the cost of the replacements would have been deducted from their wages, and the cost of a pair of binoculars was probably significant with respect to their wages, so they didn't own up. See how Swiss cheese bites yet again. And I was just saying here, maritime best practice was probably represented by these two guys. So it's always easy to be wise after the event, but certainly the SOLAS, anybody knows about maritime SOLAS rules, safety of life at sea, are as a result of the Titanic. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's all I've got to say. I'm hoping you can now go and fix your problems. I want to say thank you and good luck, and also want to wish you a very happy Valentine's Day. That's it.
It happens to be my wedding anniversary.
Oh, wonderful. So good on you, Craig. Are you taking her out tonight?
Well, that's the trouble with having your wedding anniversary on Valentine's Day. You don't get to... Places are all booked out. That's my excuse anyway. Yeah. Please ask any questions. Of course, if you want to listen back to the recording, we've recorded this, so you're more than welcome to listen back to it. And also the slides have been will be sent to you. So all the slides have got those links. So if you want to have a look at buying those books or links to those articles around those disasters that have happened, then have a look at those. So and as Ian said, that you're more than welcome to use those tools that he's got there, the binary method, the NC, the CA, PA method. I quite like that one. And those 10 questions, I think we're going to put that into our quality system here at Mango as well. So, and of course, Ian's asking me if we can write those questions into Mango itself. So we'll have to think about that, Ian.
Oh, that would be cool.
Very good. So I haven't got any more questions. I think you've done very well. You've managed to fit with inside. You've got 4 minutes to spare. You've managed to fit with inside the hour, Ian. So thank you very much.
Good.
Appreciate
it.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. If you've got any questions outside of this, then forward them through to me. I'll send them through to Ian. And between us, we'll answer those questions. As I say, look out for a recording of this webinar. I'll send you all a link to that on an email. Look out for the next webinar. We're going to be looking at the new health and safety standard, ISO 45001. So I've got that booked for the 2nd of March, but that's coming out of South Africa where I'm going to be there. So those listening in New Zealand and Australia might struggle because that's going to be in a different time zone, but you'll be sure to listen to a recording of that anyway if you register. So thank you all for attending, and good day to you all. And thanks again, Ian.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for sticking through it. I hope it was of use to you and gets you to a different place where you've been before. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Much appreciated.